Well, I have the time while I'm emptying this. Well, I'm going to be talking about safety, in the attic and how you're walking through. You got to look at how your trusses are oriented. So they're oriented this way because you can tell from the slope of the roof. Obviously the slope is this way, so your trusses are going to follow that. And so your load bearing walls are going to be perpendicular, like here, to the truss, because they're actually supporting the truss as well. The fact that you know interior walls is a top plate of an interior wall, because there's plastic here and here on the other side, and this is flush with the ceiling. That's how you know this is an interior wall mostly. So I'm stepping on this, which is over top of the interior wall, and this is again another interior wall, but also load bearing, as well as this one. This interior wall here is not load bearing because it's parallel with the trusses. I have to somehow figure out how to fix that, but we don't have a piece of wood that I usually use for that, so I'm gonna have to go perpendicular here and fix that. I'm gonna have to be careful with the nails as well. You have to look too, like, to make sure there's no nails that are sticking out. There you go. That's as good as I'm gonna get that one. And then when you're backing up, you make sure you're not gonna get hooked onto electrical wires. There you go. See? That's a nice fix. There's another sign that an interior wall is an interior wall or a top plate, is because you can see the electrical coming out of here. In my other videos I obviously mentioned that these have to be or should be spray foam so that there's no air leakage, because look at that gigantic hole. But that's something you can step on, because you know on the underside, the other side of on the inside of the house here, there's 2x4s every 16-inch on center, because that's typical of an interior wall for your framing of your house. That's why I'm saying that this is, I mean, load bearing for yourself, you know, maybe not necessarily load bearing for the trusses, but this, again, like I said, perpendicular to the truss, so therefore this is load bearing for the house. I wanted to continue with the safety in the attic, how to walk and plan to walk. So again, if you want to bring your plank, you'd want to put it perpendicular to these trusses, and then also a lot of connections like this 2x4 here connects mostly right across, or should connect right across all the trusses. That actually provides, is supposed to be built in when they build this townhouse. And so yeah, that's like, this is full, so that's why, like I'm saying, you can't really see where you're walking, but typically the trusses are 2 feet on center, so you know that you're gonna have a 2x4 here and here. Before you put any pressure on anything, you want to uncover it like this, and then you can see what it is, right? You'd inspect it. Okay, this is the bottom of a truss. Good. So you're relatively safe to step on that. I'll show you some of the stuff that you can't step on, but that look like you could. So there are some cross pieces that you can't step on, and those particular pieces are the ones that are connected maybe on one end but not on the other. Those are things you really have to watch out for. For example, this one here is connected to one truss and two truss, so this is safe to step on. But again, see how many nails are? At least these are bent, but if they were up straight, then you'd get a nail right through the foot. So that's also one of the reasons you uncover before you step. And in your own attic, you could push the insulation aside, especially if it's loose fill, so that you have a clear path, and then when you go back to it, you still have that path because you saw where the insulation was disturbed. You can make yourself a path just by moving the insulation around, such as what I'm doing here. This here is a top plate, and so it is safe to step on. However, if you put pressure on either side, then you're going to damage your drywall. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest this being your first choice to walk around. Definitely pieces that are above the truss, those are much better. So words of caution, even with 2x4s that are on top of trusses, you always want to inspect them. So this one has some rot and could be much weaker. So when you step, even for a little bit, you always want to concentrate your weight on the part that's closest to the truss, like right here. The middle is going to be a little bit risky, all depending on the strength underneath, because of the moment that you're applying when you're putting pressure right in the middle of the span of this 2x4. So the other thing too is you don't assume that even the 2x4s that are on top of trusses are fastened to the truss. Like for instance this one, see, not even hooked on. So if you put any pressure awkwardly and then it moves around on you, then you can lose your balance and then go through the ceiling. So that's something to watch out for. Always look for those nail pieces here. This is fastened to the nail. You have to make sure also it's actually fastened to the truss and that the carpenter didn't miss their shot, because that also happens. Actually, this is a perfect example here of some of the pieces I wouldn't necessarily venture on. You see those 2x4s put on the flat. I said that you shouldn't be going onto these here is because they're not always properly fastened, and if they're not only held by nails, that's kind of iffy. But any piece that actually has pieces of wood under it, or that are supposed to be trusses, those are typically safe to stand on. Right, so there's your double truss at the edge there, 6 feet off from the edge, and then it changes the direction of the roof typically. So you got, you know, the roof going this way, but if you look over here, you've got the roof going the other way. So there you go. I'm gonna clear that vent there. There we go. Very nice. So always look at your roof to see the orientation. Be familiar with your attic before you venture into it, and always be safe. 3 points of contact, either 2 hands, 1 foot, or 2 feet, 1 hand, so that you're safe. And then before you just sort of relax, make sure that you know, you're comfortable, that you're not in an awkward position, so that you don't fall like myself. I've got my knee pads. Whoops, sorry. I've got my knee pads on me there, and I've got one knee on the truss, and then I've got my other foot on another truss, so I'm stable. And then I've got my back to an angled. Well, this looks more like a 2 by 2.5 or 2 by 3 piece here for the truss. So I know I'm not going to fall, and I can very comfortably go around and insulate. So that's always something to take into consideration, or else you may lose your balance and fall before you move at all. Because I've had my partner, like I said, turn and like move backwards, but then hit the back of their head onto a 2x4 that they didn't see. You know, instead of, before you move, you look around. You know, what is in my way right now? Can I move forward without hitting my head? You know, that's why I say be situationally aware. So just remember, each attic is different, has different layout. So just be familiar with yours. Take your time, plan it out, plan your route, and you should be safe. Just remember my pointers, and don't do anything that you don't feel comfortable doing. We'll see you next week.